Screening, a little bit of a self-exam you can do on yourself to see if you're at risk for injury or need to work on improving your performance a little bit. So we've got some tests that are designed to self-examine your lower extremities, your core, low back, and your upper extremities. Screening, a little bit of a self-exam you can do on yourself to see if you're at risk for injury or need to work on improving your performance a little bit. So we've got some tests that are designed to self-examine your lower extremities, your core, low back, and your upper extremities. So let's talk about the lower extremity first, since that's the most basic thing we think of when we ski and snowboard. And the most elemental thing we have to check is your squat, the ability to drop your body weight down and stay balanced. Now, if you see from this plane of motion in the front, what I'm looking for here is when you squat, do your knees stay in alignment over your feet, or do they cave into the midline? The knees have to have the ability to move forward. Think of pushing into your ski boots or your snowboard boots, and that's what kind of drives, your weight forward, and your hips go back at the same time. But a lot of people, when they do this happens because they don't have the ankle mobility. So if you squat and you see this and you fall on your back seat, you're at risk for a knee injury. Now, moving on to a lunge. Lunge is just a more advanced version. From the front, I'm just going to have you take a back step lunge. First of all, lifting one leg up, see if you can balance. This is a self-exam in itself to see if you have balance to keep your center of gravity over your base of support. Then you're just going to step back. Weight is all in the front leg. If again, you see the knees coming forward, my chest is coming forward, and then I shift all the way to my left knee and I step up. What are some of the weaknesses we see here? When you go back, the knee buckles in, or the upper body might tip left. You're all over the place in this plane of motion as you try to go up and down. Or are you aligned nice and straight? Chest coming forward and back in this view. Good balance. Chest forward, back, with the knee coming forward, the chest coming forward. But again, we're looking at all this instability in this plane. If that's happening with you, especially if the knee's going in greater than 2 inches, you're at a significantly higher risk for an injury such as an ACL. Okay. So that is the lunge and the squat. And lastly, skiing, snowboarding requires your center of gravity to move a lot. So this is a dynamic test I just designed. If you hop and hold, you stack the joint properly, bringing your knee and hip in alignment with the foot and stick it in balance. Starting with just a simple, can you balance? Or when you do this, does this happen? Things like that. Alignment, absorption. Same thing as a squat. Hip goes back, knee goes forward, chest comes forward. Of course, on both legs. And if you can do it with just a little step and hold, you're doing okay. If you can be really advanced and do it, whether it's to your right and to your left, and stick it. See, I lost my balance there. Stick it. Stick it. You're doing very well, and the risk of an injury is significantly less. That's the lower extremity exam. So now we're moving on to the upper extremity screening. Okay, so first you just want to make sure you have equal range of motion on both sides. If you find one arm, you can only get it up this high, and you have to shrug to get it up higher, and the other arm goes all the way up. You've got an asymmetry that should be addressed. And that can play into when you fall, if you can't get the adequate range of motion to reach, or if you lose your center of gravity and you fall one way, do you have the flexibility to regain your center of gravity? So range of motion of the shoulder is key. And then just from a long-term chronic perspective, internal rotation is very important. So when you pull one arm up like this, is it symmetrical to the other side? Are they within a hand width? Or is one arm way down here, won't go up at all, and the other arm goes up a hand width greater? That makes you at risk for shoulder tendonitis problems, all types of chronic problems we see that can make the shoulder weaker, and then when you fall, you won't have the strength. So we'd like to see that internal rotation range of motion somewhat equal. And again, you can use a ski pole. You don't have to use a pole to do the same thing, but just look for that hand width difference. Here versus this side. So that's the range of motion test. The strength. Part of it, what you'll use in your strengthening program for the upper extremity. In general, this is just a self-observation thing I've noticed. I'd like to see females being able to use a 5-pound dumbbell, nice and straight, and perform a side-lie external rotation 10 times, slowly both ways. It's a great rotator cuff strength. If you're using a 3-pounder and you can barely get 1 or 2, you've got a very weak rotator cuff, the muscles that support the shoulder joint, all these muscles here. And if you were to fall on it, the ability to stabilize the shoulder joint will be compromised. For men, I'd like to see an 8-pounder, 10 times. And again, the goal in the shoulder program you'll be doing these exercises is to bump the weights up with these. So 10 times with the 8 for the males, 5 times with the females. And lastly, push-ups. Now, you got to be careful with push-ups. Obviously, you don't want to get injured doing them. But again, if you're going to ski or board, there's going to be times when you're going to fall, whether it's on one side like this, or, you know, on snowboarders, we do it all the time, falling on our face. Makes sense. You should have the wrist range of motion. You know, you should have, you know, close to 90 degrees to absorb. I mean, granted, you're wearing guards, so that protects you sometimes, which is great. But whether you do it on a fist position or a dumbbell, you should at least be able to, you know, females to be doing modified push-ups. And of course, we know some females can do more push-ups than males. And full push-ups. But good control, 10 to 15. You know, should be kind of a basic, I think, you know, most of us should be able to do to be sure our upper extremities can take the force when we fall, you know, fall down, which we all do at some point. That is the upper extremity self-exam. The final self-examination test is the core, the mid-back, the low back, seeing if we're strong here, which again, a lot of injuries occur in skiing if you have weak muscles that support the back, where there's rotational forces that tweak you, get thrown forward, so you need strong muscles to support your back. So the first test you're going to do is the abdominal one. Granted, I'm not a big advocate of sit-ups because I think it puts way too much load on the low back, even though it gives you great ab work, but the compromise is you over-compress the back. But for the sake of this one test, I want you to try to do a partial curl-up, brace the abs, lift the back just slightly off the floor, just an inch or two, and hold. Now this is the test. If you can hold this, you know, you want to be able to hold this for a minute without your back arching and you dropping, where you just round up, hold it, keep this stable and tight, 1 minute. Females, 1 minute. Nice solid core here, okay? Being able to hold it. You need something to hold your feet down. You can lock them in under a bed. But you want to be able to tense this and hold this for a good minute. 2 minutes would be excellent, okay? Or this, okay? It's much harder to do, and it is quite a bit of tension here when you do that. The other test for strengthening and a strength test for the low back, and a lot of these are strength endurance. They're not just strength, you got to be able to hold the posture. Is the opposite arm leg reach, hold, and this also tests balance. Okay, so you want to be able to hold this posture for, again, a minute ideally, but 2 minutes would be better. Can you stay straight, or do you twist, do you turn, do you compensate? And if you want to make it harder, pick up the back foot. But again, just holding this position for 1 to 2 minutes. I'd like to see 2 minutes ideally, so that you can show you have the endurance in these back muscles to hold the posture you need for boarding and skiing, so they're not going to fatigue. I mean, you're going to be out there all day on the hill. And of course, you want to take a minute or two break, and then test the other side, holding it for up to 2 minutes. Okay? And the final test, along those same lines, is I like to use a ball. You can do them on anything where you can have your feet stable and secured. Okay, so you're going to go off the edge of a ball, and you're just going to come up. See, my feet are firm against the wall. And you got to find that balance point, and I lift. And again, I'm going to hold. Can I hold this for 2 minutes? At least a minute is appropriate. If you can only hold these postures, the same with that one, the same with the ab one, for 10, 15 seconds and you collapse, you're at a pretty high risk for a back injury. You should be able to hold these postures a good minute. Just like that. Okay. That is the core self-exam. So in conclusion, you got the lower extremity, the core, the upper extremity. You might have done well in some areas, like the legs, lower extremities, and poorly with the core, or vice versa. This is where the program we're going to give you, the video segments to follow, along with the charts and the pictures, will help you. If you have a particular area you scored low in, address it. The low back, the legs. If you do this, you can really reduce your risk of injury and enhance your performance.